to the Knitting Spring podcast. My name is Tonya, and I am your host or person talking to you today. Welcome back, everyone who joined me the last time, and any new viewers who are finding me for the first time. Thank you, everyone who welcomed me back and said they missed the podcast. That was really touching and nice to hear that I was missed. You can find me on Ravelry as cheekiemunkie, Instagram as cheekiemunkie1, Goodreads as Tonya. I think I'm the only one from New York. And I have my show notes on knittingspring.com. All right, let's get to the knitting this time. No big introductions. You heard everything the last time, so I have a finished object. I finished my Move sweater, and it is by Anka Strict. I have made several, excuse the lighting, I'm still working that out. I've bought lighting, but I'm trying to figure out how to set it up, and I don't know if I'm going to be keeping this same setup because I can't put the lights everywhere that I think they'll work best. So just so you know that is in progress and I'm working through it. The knitting. My sweater is the Move sweater by Anka Strict. I knitted out of Miss Bab's Zombie Prom in the Yowza base. It's a short sleeve worsted weight sweater. I love it. It turned out really great. I think on screen, maybe you can't, but when you, any photos I've taken, and it might be on this side, like right in here, there was some pooling, but I adjusted the stitch count for it until it stopped pulling. You can see a little bit right here under my bust line with the black, but it turned out beautifully. You can see, I'll stand up a little bit. It's a fitted sweater. The arms fit really nicely. They're snug, but not too snug underneath. This is definitely for a fitted sweater. It's the best fitted sweater, and definitely under the arms. I've learned to adjust for under the arms because some of the oversized sweaters that I've knit, there's too much room underneath the arms, and not that I'd rather there be too much room under the arms than not enough. You know, there's nothing more like, at least for me, anything, my clothing feeling like it's choking me. I just can't have that. I think that's another reason I love knitwear so much, because it just really conforms and moves with you. I do have some woven dresses, but I definitely don't wear them as much as I do my knitted garments. And then I always wear an undergarment. That's what I'm calling a tank or a camisole or anything, t-shirt. I always wear an undergarment underneath my sweaters. I will never, not because the wool bothers me, because it's on my bare arms and it's very soft. It's next to skin soft. Very comfortable. I'm sure many of you have knit with Miss Bab's Yowza. Very luscious, beautiful yarn. It blocked out beautifully. It stretched lengthwise as much as I thought. I knit from the underarms to the finished hem of the garment, 15 inches, and then it stretched. This is how much superwash yarn stretches. It stretched to 18 inches. I probably could have gathered that up, but I wanted there to be the stretch. I knit it to 15 inches knowing that the superwash yarn would stretch, and I knitted it with that in mind because I wanted the length and I didn't want it to be too long. So I like my sweaters to fit either mid-hip or low hip. I'm sort of okay with high hip, but I don't feel as comfortable with not, you wear your sweaters however you like to wear them, but for me to feel comfortable in the sweater, and most of my store-bought sweaters, there's a few short sleeve sweaters that are store-bought that I have that come to high hip, and I wear them and I'm comfortable with them. But anything I knit for myself, since I can determine that length, I like it to be mid-hip or low hip. I might make a cropped cardigan because for a sweater, for a dress, I wouldn't mind it coming to my waistline because you have all that fabric that flows underneath it. But that's the only time I'd see myself knitting a cropped sweater. I wore cropped sweaters in high school, and for me, I think they look really cute on other people, but I sort of have worn that trend, and I'm not that I don't like it on other people and don't think it's really cute on other people, and not that I wouldn't knit a cropped cardigan. When I mean cropped, I don't mean bolero length. I mean I'm considering a cropped cardigan that comes to a natural waist. I would never knit a pullover to that length for myself. But I think they're cute, and I think people should enjoy what they wear and what they make. So this is my first finished object. I'm really happy with it. I've already worn it this past week to work. It's been nice and cool here in New York City. I live in Manhattan, New York. And it's still, even sitting here in my apartment, I have my windows wide open. It's still a little warm, but I don't feel hot in it. You know what I mean? I feel comfortable. So I'm really happy with the short sleeves, and this is definitely, the sleeves are a little shorter than I normally would knit a short sleeve sweater. I usually knit fingering length sweaters to either the elbow or just above my elbow, but for worsted weight, I didn't really want to go more than just a little bit past where you separated for the sleeves. And I have another finished object. I don't know if I'll have this many every time I podcast. Since I'm doing this once a month now, I definitely won't have a sweater every time I podcast, but I might have finished objects every time I podcast. I finished my friend's Hermione sock, and I'm really happy with it. This was knit out of Lolo Did It. The colorway is Coal Miner's Daughter. The pattern is Hermione's Everyday Sock, and I think they turned out really beautifully. I did them, please excuse my fingernails. I made them the same way I make my sock, except I don't do gusset increases on the top for my gift knits. I just know how the socks fit on the people I gift for. I gift knit socks for only 3 people, so it's easy to remember. None of them need the gusset increase like I do. And then, but everything else is the same. Turkish cast on, toe up. This is a combination of Sockmatician's toe up heel and the OMG heel. And yeah, and I knit the sole of the sock on zeros and the top of the socks on US 1s. So 2.25 millimeter and 2.0 millimeter on the bottoms. And I use 2 circulars, and that is how I love to knit socks. And it just makes sense to me. And this does not have any kind of purple or red in it. It's just the way the sensor on my camera is catching the light. So these are definitely a tonal medium gray sock, and I really can't wait to get them. They're not for any special holiday or birthday or anything. They're just your knit worthy and your special to me gift. So I'm really happy about those. And this isn't finished this year. I think I did this last year or the year before. It must be the year before, but I've been wearing my Meer shawl, and I just reblocked it for this season, and it's a little crooked. Maybe I should be a stickler on making that spine straight, but I wear mine like this, underneath a coat or jacket or sweater, and so you really can't see that, but this has worn beautifully. The yarn, it's not Western Sky Knits, it's the Metallurgy. I think it's Lisa Much's yarn company in the Metallurgy colorway, and it has just worn beautifully. You can still see there's wonderful stitch definition, and the only reason I'm talking about this shawl is because it's knitwear season, but also because this is the shawl I wear the most in the fall or spring. I have heavier shawls that wrap around more for the colder season, but when it's sort of this shoulder weather, or the shoulder seasons, I should say, I by far wear this the most. and it probably gets washed two or three times a year, because I definitely wash it before I bring it out if I'd forgotten to block it, but I can't remember. Usually I block or wash stuff before I put it away for the season, just so it's going away clean. But I reblocked this. I must have worn this because we had a late start to the summer, I think. I can't remember. I'm really bad with that. But it really blocked out far, and it has beads in it. But yes, I wear this the most, so that's why I'm talking about it. Okay, what have I been working on? So I finished this sweater last weekend, and I finished the socks yesterday, so Saturday. And then today I picked up, and I put in a few stitches here and there on this when I didn't want to think about a pattern or anything. And I picked up, and I've been working on, I'm trying to figure out the right side. This is the right side. My exploration station. So I'm ready to weave in these ends. I've left all of these ends out just in case I wanted to rip back again, but I'm not going to. So this is the exploration station, and I am on the fence about my colors. I wanted to go, now I don't love being out in nature, but I love the beauty of nature. And a lot of my projects at work take place in the Bahamas. I wouldn't say all of them. I work on projects around the world, but I'd say the last few years, a lot of my projects have been in the Caribbean, not necessarily just the Bahamas, but I've sort of got this colorway from that. So these were colors that I was seeing every day. And so this was sort of like the Caribbean blue water, the really nice white beaches. This is sort of reminding me of the dune. If you look in sand dunes and stuff, there's a lot of golds and pretty sea greens and olives. And then I finally got my Joshua tree, which is the bands, the dark green bands, the ones that start up here. I started it here and here. So I think when I showed you this the last time, I was in this sort of sandy color section. So I've knit through the sandy color section. I've put in my first row of Madeline Tosh Euro Sock Joshua tree, and then this blue color is Hedgehog Fibers Budgie. And I think this is either Manos del Uruguay, this sort of blue-green, which I didn't like. It was just making everything too muted, and there wasn't enough contrast for me. I'm not going to rip it out because this is the third time I've knit it, and I put in the green specifically to see if it will bother me, and it doesn't. So I'm okay with the little bit of the bottom being that sort of blue-green, but I'm really happy with the addition of the olive green, which I think just makes everything pop better, and that was a good choice. Let's see, did I tell you what everything is? Oh, and this sort of seafoamy green speckled color is Lolo Did It, and the I Heart Darrow colorway, which is now retired. But so that's that. And I'm on my last wedge before I start the brioche. And my brioche is going to be this sort of, this tan color is a Homespun House, Xenophilius Lovegood Explains the Deathly Hollows. So my brioche section is going to be the Homespun House and the Madeline Tosh olive. So that's what I'm going to do my brioche section in. But this section's a pretty big wedge, and this is what I'm going to be working on when I finish podcasting here this evening. It's Sunday afternoon, so I have all evening, and I'm happy it's Sunday, but I just love the weekends and sitting and knitting, and I don't get to do that much. So that's where I am on that. Okay. The next thing I've been working on is I keep a I use my hand knitted washcloths for my face every day. I have enough that I use them every day, and I have a ton of cotton yarn, so I always just keep one on the needles. This is another one where the next 2-3 projects I'm gonna have to get up, and you're probably gonna see my sweatpants, but I have to show you. I forgot one in my purse that I left, but it's just around the corner. But this is just a washcloth that I'm working on. I put them on my Ravelry project pages as a series of 5, so I'm going to be done with the 5th one, and then I'll start another group. It's just how I keep track of them. They're in my, and I've made these for gifts, and everyone's loved that I've gifted these. And this cotton yarn this is a different color, but it's by the Universal Yarn Inc. It's called Supreme Batik, and it is 100 grams and 180 yards, 165 meters. But this is the ball band, and I found this, and I really like it. I use this cotton, and I use Knit Picks Dishy for my cotton washcloths. I like Dishy a lot, but this one is definitely by far a softer yarn. Dishy's still soft. It's definitely not the sugar and cream. I don't care for sugar and cream. That would be fine if it was if I was using them as dish cloths or a cleaning cloth. But for cotton, for the face, or I would even knit. I could see knit. I won't knit a total cotton garment. I would probably use, if I use cotton or linen in a garment, it would be mixed with silk or wool to make it a lighter fabric. But I don't see myself knitting a completely linen or cotton, just because there's no spring back that I like in knitwear. So that's that project. Okay. And before I get up, I'll show you the other project I've been working on. This is a long-term project, but you saw that I have my Cozy Memories blanket finished that I use all the time. And I had on my list to make one for my niece and my nephew. And they're in 4th and 5th grade this year, and they're doing really well. So since I had that finished, I probably picked this up and started working on this at the beginning of this year. So beginning of 2018. Yeah, we're in 2018. So you can see I have a few squares started for her. And it's mostly, I don't know how much, there'll probably be oranges and reds and etc. in here. The only reason it'll be weighted more towards feminine colors for her, not because you can see I didn't do that for mine. I'm a girl, obviously, and I don't think that's necessary because I wanted all the colors, but I have to split colors between my nephew and my niece, and I'm using scrap yarn for all of this. So these are all things that are scrap. So this was from Sweet Sparrow Yarns Advent Calendar from last year. I have this same square in my blanket. This square is a Miss Babs Yummy Toes, and this little square is from the tunic I made. And then I can't remember what the other ones are. This one I might have bought as a Yummy 2-ply and Zombie Prom, and I probably made one square for me, and I know I had one square left over for my niece. So it's probably, yeah, I'm almost positive that's what it is. Now, my squares are bigger typically than you find most, well, not every, I mean, some people's are large like mine, but I put in 32 stitches on each side of the marker, and I use a US 4. Now, this makes a very warm blanket. One, I like the bigger squares because this blanket's going to get done faster, but not only that, it uses up more yarn. I use almost, I'd say between 7 to 10 grams of yarn per square. And I chose, when I first did mine, I chose bigger squares because I was always having a lot of yarn left over from my socks, because I don't make socks that go up the legs. I don't like socks that go up the legs. I said this before. So, so I wanted to make bigger squares. So this is what I have done for my niece so far, and I've cast on, and I know this one too. I think both of these I think both of these squares. I know this one for sure was a Sweet Sparrow Advent kit from last year. And I think it's like gingerbread or something. It has something Christmassy. And then I have a whole bag full of little yarn scraps in here, and you can see my next one is going to be a red one. And this too is from Sweet Sparrow. They just happen to be in a bag that I have, and I have a couple of these. I know it's a bag within a bag, but I have a couple of these that I've separated out. You can see the little tag on there. I said whose blanket they're for, so I went through all of my scraps and separated them into little, these are like little gift bags, and I separated them out thinking, you know, Addie's will have green in it, Sam's will have green in it, you know, orange. It's just, you know, there might be a dark purple in Sam's, you know, not saying, you know, if there's a blue and a purple together, not saying I'm not going to put purple in his blanket, but since he's young now, and I don't know what he's going to be like when he's 18, when I give him the blanket for graduation from high school, I want to be on the safer side of colors for a boy rather than him, if he, you know, if he wants to go to college, if he doesn't, whatever, but you know, he has the blanket and he takes it with him. It's not, you know, a bunch of pink squares from his Aunt Tonya. So, and then I'm just going to get up real quick and show you the sock I cast on. So, since I finished my modern socks, my modern romance socks, I didn't have any travel socks, and my friend's gift socks became a project I was working on home because I have more time at home to knit than I do on the go. I'm not a morning person, so, and then traveling and knitting can be a little tricky for me. So it's when I have time really on breaks, or if I'm waiting for something to export or render at my office. Those are only a few times, you know, or lunch, that I have time to knit during the day, and I don't get that much during the day. So you can see I cast this on about a week ago, and you can see how much time I've had to knit outside of the house. So this is a little Sucre Sucre miniature, and it's one of Hagrid's rock cakes. And the yarn I'm using is, this is Neon Now. And I bought this 3 years ago. I know it's 3 years ago because it was the first Christmas I went yarn shopping in Pittsburgh when I was with my family. And I found this and it's coming out way brighter than it is, although I like the colors that it's showing. It's coming out a little brighter. You can see how much glare I'm getting from the lights, even though I have a diffuser and things on. So I'll get there with the lighting, I promise. So, yes, this is the yarn I'm using. It is Plymouth Yarn Neon Now, and it is just 75% wool, 25% nylon, 100 grams, approximately 436 yards, and it says it was made in Italy. And it's not superwash, which is fine for me, because I don't have a washer and dryer in my apartment, so I hand wash all of my hand knits. The only thing that I don't hand wash is the blanket. What I do for that is I take it to the laundromat. It's the only thing I take with me. I put it in the wool cycle with just a tiny bit of I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I put a little bit of shampoo in the washer dryer, and I don't tell the laundromat that, but it's, you know, it's not going to hurt the machine. I've put shampoo in my parents' or my sister-in-law's machine to wash stuff before. It's liquid, and it's definitely less harsh than other liquid, but I just wanted a gentle wash on that. And so I didn't want to use commercial detergent and ruin that. But I just put it on I don't have it agitate long, so I put it on the fastest cycle, the coldest water. It spins out. Then I come home and I fold it a couple of times. It takes a while to dry this way for me, but I fold it a couple of times. So it's the spin cycle gets most of the water out for me. And then I don't want all of the weight on that. So I fold it a couple of times and put it over my shower curtain. So I'll do that. Like, I'll take a shower. I'll take it to the laundromat. I'll take a shower before I go to bed. And then I'll put it up. And that way it has all night, all day, and into that evening to dry. And it's not super wet. And if I have to use the shower that night, it's only slightly damp. So it takes, depending on the time of the year, if it's the summertime, and I've only washed it twice. So I've had that probably for a year and a half, and I've only had to wash it twice. So, yeah, so that's how I do my blankets. But everything else gets hand washed in the sink. So it doesn't matter if my items are superwash or not. If they are, that's great. I know that when I'm knitting it, I did for my sweater, then great. I know I'm going to get more stretch out of it. If it's not, then that's fine with me too. Okay, I think that's everything for the knitting. Let me think. Let me go through my show notes. I keep putting my show notes on my iPad, and at first I thought, and I think that some of the glare I'm getting to this time is from my iPad. So, and it's still daylight. I don't know. I keep waxing on about this light, but it's really bothering me. And if it's bothering you too, I feel your pain. Okay, so mostly this year I have knit from stash. I was going to show you a few things I've gotten this year, but I'll show you next time because they're on the shelf back there and I've already gotten up once. Okay, so let's talk about some books I've been reading. I say reading as a general term of ingesting fiction, nonfiction material. Most of my consumption of books is audio. There's two ways I get my audiobooks. I get them from the New York Public Library, and I use the Libby app, which is fantastic I know a lot of people use Overdrive for their library books, but I think they're using that for digital to actually read, words on a page. But I found that Libby for audiobooks, for renting from the library, to be a better option. They have better controls, better ways of browsing for audiobooks. Most of the books I read are from audiobooks. So New York Public Library is one. The second place I get my books from is Audible, and I get my books from them two ways. There's a romance package I know the Knit Girls have talked about, and it's $6.95 a month, and you can borrow up to 10 books at a time and return them. It's like a paid subscription, like streaming service or whatever for romance novels, but it's not just, and I also want to say it's not just what you think of Harlequin romance novels. So I do that, and then I also have a monthly credit that I get, and I have occasionally purchased books with my member discount from them. So, and I read probably, or I should say I listen to anywhere from probably like 10 to 21 books a month. So I listen or ingest quite a few books a month. I started with my books as obviously reading a hardback, and I still buy books. I still buy digital books. I don't buy as many digital books. If I can get it audibly, I do, because that means I'll have more chance of listening to it. because my evenings, by the time I get home, I only have so much time to knit and relax, and I try to have lights out by 11 o'clock. So that only gives me about 3 hours, and I want most of that time to be knitting, just because that is a time that is relaxing for me. It helps me wind down from the day. It really is my meditation space. And so I struggled for a really long time with not reading physical books. And so for probably the last 2 years, and then really this last year, from last September to now, I've really changed with digital subscriptions. The romance package got me off my butt to get a library package, a library subscription. So let me talk about the ones, since I'm yawning. It's just like stream of consciousness about audiobooks and reading right now. These are the 3 books I enjoyed the most so far this month. The first one is The Quiet Game by Greg Iles, and I'll put the titles, or maybe I'll put the digital picture I have. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen the books I've been reading. But this book was by Greg Iles. It's a thriller, suspense, mystery. That's the category you find it in on any of the sort of how they file things or sort things in the genres. And it's about a man named Penn Cage. He just lost his wife, and he has a young daughter, and they moved back to Natchez, Mississippi. And he comes to unravel this old mystery that was tied to him and his family and what's currently going on. And it was so well written. I really enjoyed it. The facts, the level of writing, the intelligence of the thoughts, the reflections that the author, how he fleshed out characters. There's more room for them to grow. They're not static. Really good, complicated, circuitous story, which you want, in a book. And then the second 2 books are by the same author. So I highly recommend that. I gave it 5 stars. And that is much as a description I want to give, because I don't like to give spoilers or any more. That's sort of what you'll get within the first chapter of the book. So everything I've told you, you'll get in the first chapter of the book. And the rest is just sort of vague outline of what to expect in the book. The first one I read was Tyrannosaur Canyon. That's the first book in the Wyman Ford series by Douglas Preston. And then his 4th book in that series, The KRAKEN Project. The 2 in between are good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed them. But these are more like science mysteries. Think along the lines of Michael Crichton. They are filled with facts. Some things, if you're a diehard scientist, if you really know about him, but most of his facts are true. I follow a lot of the things he talks about. Tyrannosaur Canyon's all about this paleontologist and paleontology and a mystery that surrounds this, and the story that he puts in there about the T-Rex is really good, really unique. He worked at the Museum of Natural History here in New York City, and so he knows a lot of these people, and science is a big interest of this author, and he's written a lot about it, so he's a well-informed man. And he also writes, I haven't read these books, but he also writes with Lincoln Child. Him and Lincoln Child write, I guess, mysteries and thrillers. I haven't gotten into those yet, but they're on the list. And the second book is called The KRAKEN Project, and this one's about AI. And it's sort of, at first I thought it was going to be almost a retelling of the Space Odyssey 2001, but it's not. He did a really good take on it. I really enjoyed where it went. I really enjoyed the science he put into it, the thoughts about it. He's really good at taking points of view of, I'd say, people that know about the science and people that don't. and pitting them to get against each other with antagonists and protagonists, and weaving different stories together and how science affects us differently. I was really, really impressed about this. And then the last book I want to talk about, and I think most of you have either read it or heard about it, but it's Knitlandia by Clara Parks. I listened to it this month, and I do own a hard copy, and I probably read the first 3 chapters and then quit. Not because I didn't enjoy the book. I just wasn't finding time to sit. And even though each chapter in the book is its own story that's joined together about her travels, but and you could separate them out like that, but I was just not picking up the book to read. So Clara Parks narrates the books. She does a wonderful job. It's to me, it always harkens back when you hear the author read their own story to the oral tradition of telling. This is her memoirs, so it's not folklore, but it has that sitting around, listening to someone tell their tale, what they've done, what their experiences are, and I loved it. I loved listening to her. I thought she did a beautiful job narrating. I have also listened to, what's her name? She used to be the editor from Gourmet Magazine, Ruth Reichel. Her first book, I believe, was Come For Me With Apples. And she also narrated her first book. And I love when the author does that. And I understand some people don't like to hear the narration. They prefer to have the voice in their head and the sound of the voice in their head. I understand that's one of the reasons people are turned off by audiobooks. I've only come across probably a handful of narrators that I didn't care for. Most of them are very good at narrating. They don't have everybody hears differently, so everybody's attenuation to sound is different. So for me, the sounds that I'm hearing aren't annoying. And I know that's what it can be. And I'm using the word to be mean or anything, but I know that's what it can feel like when somebody doesn't have a good narrator. It's annoying to listen to, and you're trying to get through this book, and all you can hear is the voice that you just don't want to listen to. So I totally understand that. And I've only come across, I'd say literally a handful of the definitely hundreds of audiobooks that I have listened to. I bet you I've listened to at least 200 audiobooks, and I've listened to half of that this year. And so there's definitely only a handful of audiobooks, and I love coming home. I'm not a big TV person. Not that I don't enjoy TV. I've actually watched 2 series recently that I really liked. They were both on Amazon Prime, and the first I did not expect to like at all. It was the Jack Ryan series by Tom Clancy. I'm not good with actors' names because I really don't pay attention to that unless they're really famous or I've seen them over and over again. The man who plays Jack Ryan, I didn't think he would, we had Harrison Ford and Alec Baldwin, and he just seems to be different than that, but he picked up on the Jack Ryan character really well. I've read a couple of Tom Clancy's books. I actually want to reread the first one again. It's on hold at the library for I don't know, I have 20 weeks to wait or something like that. But he did a really great job. It goes all the way back to the beginning before Patriot Games. If you've seen that movie, it's before that. And they did a really great job with the series. I really liked it. I thought they did good with casting and with the plot lines and stuff. I mean, it's a TV series. I wouldn't put it up there with Mad Men or Breaking Bad, but I really enjoyed watching it. So it was I think I watched it on a Saturday or something. The second series that I really enjoyed is Goliath, and it has Billy Bob Thornton in it. And he does a really good job playing the sort of sarcastic, disgruntled, fallen man. And the first season was brilliant. It was so well done. The second season was really good, but there's If you've seen it, there's some disturbing stuff in there that's sort of icky, but it was good. So those are the two things that I've watched on TV besides knitting podcasts. I don't consider knitting podcasts watching TV. I consider that a different category. So when I say watch TV, I mean Netflix, PBS, or Prime. That's the only, and then Outlander on Stars, but that's pretty much all I don't have cable or anything, so that's sort of where I get my TV watching from, or when I say TV, even movies. So that's what I've been doing. There is one book that I was disappointed in reading, and I just finished it on Friday, and I might get hate mail from this, but Circe by Madeline Miller. I thought that book was going to be right up my alley. I thought I was going to love the book. I think that's why I'm more disappointed in it than maybe I should be, but I've read other books in that same genre that's sort of a retelling of mythological myths. I've written a review on it in Goodreads because I had to force my way through that book. And normally when I have to do that, I quit, but I kept waiting for that book to get better. And I'd say there was probably a few pages at the end that made me give it. Now on Goodreads, the stars are 1 is I didn't like it, 2 is okay, 3 is I liked it, 4 is I really liked it, and 5 is I loved it. So I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was okay. It wasn't the worst book I ever read, but it was, compared to the other retellings or in that sort of genre, or even, I've read the Iliad and the Odyssey. These were epic poems, and there was none of that grandeur feeling in the book for me. So I think it missed the mark for me, for sure. I knew all the mythology, so it wasn't like I was learning anything new, and it seemed like she was just like me telling you this here. I'm not a storyteller. I'm not writing a novel. It would be just like, I felt like what she put on the page was just like me telling you the history of Odysseus, or, there was just no more insight. That's what I felt. And the 2 other books I can highly recommend if you are into Circe and you do like retelling of mythological myths is Margaret George wrote Helen of Troy about 10 years ago, and then Sappho's Leap by Erica Jong. Both of those are very good retellings. The Iliad and the Odyssey aren't for everybody because they are written in epic prose, or not prose, but poetry, kind of like it's an epic poem. So how it's told can be hard to read and get through. So other than that, there's other ones, but those were the ones I thought were the best in that sort of retelling of someone. And I love witch books. And Circe was supposed to be the first witch, and so sad about that I didn't like that book. I'm really upset that I didn't like that book because I don't know. I just thought it just really left me limp. I was really sad that that's the story that was told to me. Okay. So, that's it for me. A much shorter episode than I normally have. Well, not normally have, but from last time. So going through all those different things. I am going to continue working on my Exploration Station shawl tonight. And, I am going to see, and I'll put up on Tuesday, I am going to the New York Historical Society. London had this first, and I don't know, I think it was in the Queen Victoria and Albert Museum that had the history of magic for Harry Potter, but it's here in New York. It started, I believe, at the beginning of this month, or maybe mid-month. I bought my tickets whenever they went on sale, but even when I bought them on sale, all the weekends were sold out. So I'm going Tuesday afternoon. I'm taking off the last few hours of work, and I'm going to the Upper West Side, and it's supposed to be fantastic. I will link in the show notes the New York Times article. It had a ton of pictures in there of what the show's supposed to be like. And home of the New York Historical Society, which is a fantastic place to go anyways. I probably haven't been there in 7 or 8 years, so it's always nice to see. This is one of the things I love living in New York about. I personally love living in New York. Everybody who doesn't live here, who I visit outside the city, I'd say 95% of them always ask me, how can you live there? I love it. The moment I stepped foot here to know I was going to move here and get my apartment, it was home to me. Even though I didn't grow up here, I love being here. And this is one of the things I love about living in New York. I get to just go over after work one day and go see an exhibit that I'm going to love. I am a huge Harry Potter fan. And I don't know if I ever said this before, but I was really reluctant to read Harry Potter. Harry Potter probably came out when I was about somewhere between when did it come out? 97. So I was 24 when it came out. And it probably didn't even hit my radar because I know I wasn't reading that much at that time. I know because I was in art school and, or just finishing art school. And in art school, there was no time to read. If you weren't drawing or putting together a project, then you were sleeping. That was it. That was all there was. I waited tables, I went to school, and I slept. That's all I did. I didn't go out anywhere. I didn't do anything. And I was either working on projects or sleeping or working. So it was probably a few years later when the third book came out. And I remember driving, my mom and I were commuting together at the time to work, and we were listening to NPR in the morning, and I was like, who would wait in line that long for a book? And my mom came home, she dropped me off and took the car, because we only worked within a mile of each other, so we took turns. Sometimes we'd go meet for lunch together, sometimes one of us would take their lunch and the other would have the car for the day or whatever, so we used to commute together. So honestly, ride sharing for me isn't much anything new, but we worked really close together for a couple of years, only about a mile apart. And so we would go in the same car and trade off days. Some days one of us would need the car more than the other, but it was like every other day we would drop the other off and pick the other up. And so the day she dropped me off, she ended up dropping me off that day. And when she picked me up, she's like, I got you a Harry Potter book. And I was like, she got me the hard copy, the first edition. And I probably didn't pick it up. And I was like, she's like, Tonya, you love books, you love reading. This is a really big deal. And I think you should have it for your library. So I said, okay. And I ended up bringing the book with me because I brought my whole library because I never travel anywhere without a physical library, even though most of the things I do read or listen to now are digitally. Even if I would read a book, it would probably be in digital format because you can see I don't have a lot of place to store books here. So being a New Yorker in a small apartment, you are very conscious about what you bring into your apartment because you only have so much space. Anyway, so my first roommate in New York's like, Tonya, I cannot believe you haven't read this book. You're going to love it, love it. She kept pestering me. Probably for like 3 months. I'm not kidding. Almost every day. Have you read it? Have you read it? So finally one weekend I picked it up and I tore through it. And I can honestly say from that day forward, I went out. Once I finished that first book, I ran to the bookstore, picked up 2 and 3, and 4 might have been out by then, or it was just about to come out, but I'm sure I ran and picked that up since it came out. And I've been a huge Harry Potter fan since, and I cannot wait to go see the History of Magic. The only reread the Harry Potter series. I've probably reread it 3 times, and over the holidays, I was thinking about doing a Harry Potter reread at the beginning of the year, since it's the 20th year going back to anniversary for Hogwarts and Harry Potter and stuff. But I think I'm going to do the 7-book series reread over the Christmas holidays. And I think that'll be a awesome thing to do over the Christmas holidays. So, okay. Once again, I am going to say goodbye after another 10 minutes of just chit-chatting with you. But I will see you guys in 4 weeks or a month. And I've had a really great time recording and chatting and sharing with you all of my makes and doings. And I'll see you all soon. And happy knitting. And it's so great to be back. And thank you all again. And